Hey guys, and welcome back to Altcoin Buzz Spotlight with me, Leah Heilvan, the show where we speak to entrepreneurs, innovators, and thought leaders in the cryptocurrency and the blockchain space. Joining me today is Cyrus Tegetshian, the CEO of Split, the project powered by Polkadot that are building a layer 2 dot infrastructure. Now guys, before we jump in, don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe so you never miss a video, and also you can let us know in the comment section below who you'd like us to interview next and which topics you want us to cover. Cyrus, great to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. You guys are doing something a little different compared to all the other projects that we have on the show. So I'm excited to delve in, learn more about it. So tell me off the bat, how would you describe Split?
Yeah, Split is really a new way to shop online. It's the new internet of shopping. It's a peer-to-peer e-commerce supply chain where anybody could become a direct-to-consumer marketplace. So Split is really a marketplace of marketplaces, creating the piping to create the Web3 layer for all of e-commerce data to let people like you and I have an e-commerce store without getting bullied by the big guys like Alibaba or Amazon.
So explain to me how you're then making it more efficient, transparent, secure, to protect against those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So using the power of blockchain technology, we could have a peer-to-peer e-commerce system, more of that decentralized commerce, where we use blockchain to and smart escrows to protect buyers. So money goes into a smart contract escrow as a transaction happens. So the seller just can't run away and scam the buyer. Right. So we built these protections in place throughout the whole life cycle of e-commerce transaction, using blockchain and cryptocurrencies to incentivize good behavior and penalize bad actors, to build that safe, secure, and transparent e-commerce system online.
And your very first use case, I think it's called Mason Do. Tell me if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Tell me about it. How does it work? How is it shaping up?
Yeah, Mason Do is really exciting to me. So, first off, it's really catering to the luxury industry, and they are the largest segment of e-commerce. And not only are they largest segment of e-commerce, they have the largest potential to grow because most of luxury is still operating in the brick and mortar, system. And because of COVID, it's accelerating all of these luxury and emerging brands to get onto e-commerce. And because of such, they're a little more open and excited to be using innovative technologies like blockchain. I think that over 51% of luxury brands, when there was a survey that went out last year, said that they're interested in using blockchain technology somehow, some way, which is really positive for us as we're talking and working with our partners within Mason Do. So what Mason Do does is it aggregates all of the luxury inventory and tokenizes them on the blockchain as an NFT. So that's what Split essentially does for Mason Do. But what Mason Do does from there is it has a collection of stylists and certain online boutiques. And what these stylists and online boutiques do is they take inventory from the Split catalog, right? This global inventory that all of these brands or luxury brands or fashion brands have put their items on to the blockchain, and then they sell them to their buyers such in an affiliate fashion. The luxury brand drop ships it. So you get this really efficient e-commerce distribution channel that gets products to buyers at a much cheaper rate. Previously, how it's done last year, you would have to pay up to 40 to 60% of your net profits to be able to get into a boutique as a luxury brand. And on top of that, if they never sold your inventory, they made you buy it back. There was a buyback guarantee, which was really scary to think about if you're a brand trying to sell something, that if you sold something to somebody and then they can't sell it, then you have to buy it back from them. It was a really awkward system, but now we make that whole system very efficient and affordable for these brands to stay in business and not get all of their money taken away from these centralized brokers, exploiting their positions.
And speaking of NFTs and tokenizing it and putting it on the blockchain, I've been doing a lot of research about you guys, obviously, before we brought you on, and there's a lot of talk saying that you guys pioneered NFTs. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, whether you feel like you had a strong position In that, especially given the current, climate and let's say potential bubble of NFTs that we're in right now?
Yeah. That is true. It's a fun fact. I don't know if we were the first or one of the first, but most definitely before the Ethereum Foundation adopted the EIP 721, which is now the ERC 721. Back in 2018, we predated CryptoKitties, so we beat them out a little bit by tokenizing. Yeah, so we were minting NFTs back in 2017, beginning of 2017, late 2016 was when the idea really came about. And there's a really funny story for the tech nerds out there, how we created the first one, or at least the idea of the first one was we created an ERC-20 contract with a supply of one. So there was only one token. And that was like, well, it's an NFT technically because there's no other token like it with the ticker symbol. So that's just a little fun side note. But essentially, we ended up building NFTs back then. And our thesis is this. Everybody loves cryptocurrencies. And to me, it's the best way to describe a cryptocurrency. It's programmable money. Like I could program the money to do certain things at certain times. So that was fascinating to me. And it's not just programming money to do whatever you want, but the algorithm, consensus, et cetera, et cetera. So I look at NFTs as programmable data, specifically programmable unique data. So with that data set, I could see us building our Web3 layer for the future, right? As we transition from our current Web2 system, which the difference between Web2 and Web3, in my opinion, is very simple. Web2 is you have a single database for each individual user. Web3, you have a database for everybody, right? So it's that, like the ledger. So that database, for Bitcoin, it's money, right? It's taking accounting of how much money within each wallet has. With NFTs, you could make that data, right? So with that data, you could see what data is being used with who has permission to do what. And today we live in the wild, wild west of data, meaning like my unique data online gets mined, cookies, intercepted, read, redistributed, resold, and I never know what's happening, right? With NFTs, you could program your unique data sets online, and I could opt in or opt out of any of these type of programs. And in fact, if anybody uses my data, I could get rewarded for it if my data was NFT. So the way I look at NFTs is programmable data, and that's no different than what we do at Split. Split is using an NFT as a inventory unit or a SKU, stock keeping unit. And essentially that creates a data set online that we could then create a standard of how that data gets shared amongst parties in an e-commerce transaction. So our use of NFTs, I don't think it's in a bubble. I don't think it's going to ever come crashing down. I actually think it's going to be the most integral part of the Web2 to Web3 transition, is that we're using NFTs as programmable data that could be assigned to specific things, and it's unique data specifically, right? So you have like some data that's the same, like a website, like my image or whatever, right? But I'm talking about a data set to me, like my browsing history could be an NFT, right? My identity could be an NFT. My email system could be based on NFTs to prove my identity and who I am, and to protect myself so that information doesn't get shared unless I approve of it. And which part of that information gets shared, right? Like the cool thing about it is it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So that's a little bit of a different view on what most people are talking about. It's a definitely valid view, and it's a view that's probably going to be adopted by a lot of people over the next 5 years. But just like about 4 or 5 years ago, where we're kind of early, I was talking to a lot of people about NFTs, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Back then, I had to call it tokenized assets. Is the best way to describe it. But people were like, come back to me these days and be like, "Hey, aren't you were talking about NFTs a long time ago?" I'm like, yeah. Like, and that's kind of where we're at right now with what is an NFT? Is it a collectible digital art that I could sell for $69 million? Yeah, you can, but that was just that we're just scratching the surface of what an NFT can do. Even though it's sexy to talk about selling things for $70 million and making profits, how we create a safe, secure, transparent online system using NFTs is like a lot more interesting to me, to be honest, because that could change the way the world interacts with each other and creates more of a healthy dynamic online. Sorry, that was
and I think
It's fine. It makes a lot of sense, and I do tend to agree with you.
In that, I definitely think we're moving down this direction where everything is becoming far more digital. Web3 is coming. There's nothing we can do about it. It's coming, and I totally agree with you. I think that what we're seeing now, in terms of $69 million, I think that's the bubble. It's certainly just scratching the surface, but I would definitely say that's the bubble. But in terms of Web3, I'm absolutely with you. Everything's going to be tokenized, digitized, and I think that's the route we're going down. But you have your own utility token, ShopX. So tell me about it. Where does its value come from? What are the benefits of holding it?
Yeah, absolutely. So ShopX is really integral into the safety security that we're building within the Split ecosystem. And there's two facets to ShopX. There is the buyer, a consumer side of it, and then there's the seller side of it. So on the consumer side of things, ShopX does a few things for you. Holding ShopX gives you exclusive access to rewards, discounts, and drops within participating split retailers. We just announced one of our first ones, MacPark, themacpark.com. They essentially carry hype fashion retail such as Supreme, PacSun, Adidas, Yeezys, Nike, Air Jordans. So they have all of those products that most, like everybody in the world likes and desires. And what a ShopX token holder would do, if you have ShopX tokens and if they're staked against the store, you could get onto their VIP list, which gives you access to, again, discounts and items available to you before anybody else. So you could create this sort of like fan-based loyalty system where ShopX token holders can earn more ShopX by staking, and on top of that, get exclusive content. With and products within our ecosystem is really exciting. So that's one aspect from the consumer side. From the seller side, ShopX represents a signal of authenticity. So as a seller, if I want to mint these ENFTs, and within Split, our protocol standard of NFT is called the ENFT, and e-commerce NFT. So it's NFT that's been optimized for e-commerce transactions for that data set to be used, like I was just talking about. So in order for a seller to create an ENFT, they need to deposit some ShopX as collateral that whatever inventory item that they're claiming that they're putting onto our global inventory list is exactly what they say it is. The description is accurate, and they have the product, and they intend to fulfill the product, right? So when we're getting into this like peer-to-peer e-commerce or decentralized e-commerce system, we need to make sure that if you don't have a middleman, that the people who are acting in this system are going to be honest. And this keeps the seller honest, saying that, all right, we're going to put a few ShopX into this NFT smart contract. If the NFT gets purchased and then I fulfilled and I ship the product that's attached to that NFT, so the buyer receives not only the NFT, but also the product representing that NFT. If they get both items, then the money in the escrow goes back to the seller. So the seller doesn't actually have to pay money in order to use the system. We built this as a nonprofit open source, similar to the Ethereum Foundation. So we could become a true layer 2 NFT infrastructure for e-commerce. So, on the seller side, it represents a security of the global inventory list. And that really acts as selling bandwidth. So the more ShopX a seller has, there are more items they could list onto our network and sell it. So as the GDP within the Split ecosystem starts to go up and there's more sellers on the system, it's going to create more demand to ensure that they have enough ShopX to use as collateral for their NFTs. Obviously, they get those NFTs back on a successful transaction. And if they're deemed a bad actor, we have a whole arbitration and pre-alternative dispute resolution protocol set in place so that, everybody's protected within the life cycle of an e-commerce transaction at every facet of that cycle.
Yeah, I think having these things in place is so important, particularly in such a new market where we see a lot of, if I can put it like this, dubious projects, dubious actors. So having put these things in place to make sure that people do act in good faith, I think is always really important. Now, the term that also popped up was fractional ownership. So what does that mean for Split?
Yeah, so fractional ownership, this is something that we started tinkering with a long time ago. And while we do have this functionality, it's not something that we're rolling out with first. It's going to be sometime a little later. But I guess since you found it, we'll talk about it a little bit. So each ENFT has the ability to be fractionally owned by a group or collective. So each ENFT has a DAO contract baked into it. So what that means is if I have an ENFT that I'm purchasing, let's say, a water bottle, I could fractionally own that with like 3 or 4 other people. And based on how much percentage or token, how much money I put into that DAO, is my collective percentage. So if I put 25% of the ShopX tokens into that DAO, then I own 25% of that DAO. So for purchasing a water bottle, that doesn't make sense, but it gets interesting when you start thinking about vacation homes, or if you start thinking about a boat, right? So then me as a collective with a few of my friends or a few strangers, we could purchase a vacation home, and then I actually own the property I don't actually own the property. I own the right to rent the property, which is kind of crazy, that you pay all that money and you don't actually own anything. Yeah. So it's a way to create a proof of ownership mechanism, and how much of a percentage and governance around it. So we have this really cool bidding system. So if the cost of ownership of owning a home is $12,000 a year on a monthly basis, it means we have to pay $1,000 a month for the DAO to maintain that home and insurance and cleaning or whatever it is. So the way we make it for you to redeem your share, meaning if I paid for half of the house, I could get it for 6 months, right? So, but if I try to get it for 7 months, I won't be able to get it. But how do I claim it for 2 months? And what if it's the 2 months that everybody wants in the summertime? So we created a bidding system. So the minimum bid is 1,000. If someone else wants the house during that same time you want, they could bid up from each other to find that equilibrium free market price. And then the rest of the money will go back into reducing the cost of ownership for everybody else. So there's kind of this incentive set in that people get what they want by putting a little more ShopX into redeeming the asset versus those who could reap the benefits if someone else gets it the month they don't, then the other months that need to claim the asset would be reduced. So it's a really cool mechanism to fractional ownership, and still built into what we have within the split e-commerce system we built. The reason why we didn't focus on it, being fully transparent, is there's a lot of legal law we would have to kind of jump through, right? So not everybody could be on a title of a house in certain states, and at least in the United States. So that means that we need to create an LLC, a corporation shell, and all this other kind of stuff, which requires like lawyers or whatever. So our focus isn't, to build, law or legal structures or anything along those lines. Our focus is to build technology. So as, service providers start to pop up, or we start to partner with people, we will definitely enable that sort of fractional ownership system to be live. But like I said, right now our focus is on decentralized e-commerce, and to really alleviate the problems in current e-commerce today, where the big players like Amazon or Alibaba are, exploiting their position and taking all the money away from all the little guys. So our focus is to, remove the middlemen and empower, the small, medium businesses to build a sustainable business online and not have, their revenue taken out from, these centralized players.
And speaking of, online e-commerce and all of these things, you've integrated with Shopify. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's one of our secret weapons, in my opinion. The way I describe it is, there's a lot of cool blockchain projects, e-commerce or not, doesn't matter. Really cool, innovative stuff. But the problem I've seen is that they're asking, society to say, hey, this is how you do e-commerce today, right? Or this is how you use a system today, but come use this Web3 blockchain system and leave what you've done on your old site and come to our site and use our system, right? And that creates a lot of friction, right? In convincing people to leave something that they're used to and feel safe with to try something new. And crypto projects, for all of us, it might sound pretty easy and fun to use, but for the majority of people, it's intimidating, right? They feel a little timid and scared about jumping into like a DeFi protocol, or what the hell is even staking? We talk about staking as if, oh yeah, it's no big deal, we'll stake. you earn more. How much is the APY? But people are like, what do you mean stake, right? Like that concept is still hard to swallow. So it's important that we have a little bit of empathy towards most of the society today. And the way I saw it was like, all right, why don't we take Split and take it to where people are operating today, such as Shopify, which they own 1/5 of the e-commerce market. So about like 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6 stores is a Shopify store in the world, right? So we picked one of the largest partners to innovate with, where they have reach of over 1 million stores on their system right now. And that means that for Split, we could turn all of Shopify's users into a Web3 decentralized ecosystem for e-commerce. So they essentially could become a decentralized Amazon in the consumer market without the Amazon cost, which is really interesting. So that's why we ended up building and partnering to build within the Shopify ecosystem. They have such an immense, like a big reach to a bunch of these retailers online that we'd like to partner with. And then from there, we will branch off into WooCommerce and Magento are like our 2 other next platforms that we're going to be integrating with to bring that same Split magic, to turn any of these Web2 front ends into a Web3 backend, right? So it's that bridge from Web 2 to Web 3, and that's what Split's doing.
I understand. I think it's really interesting to realize that there is this bridge, and it's not a matter of, the likes of Shopify would get left behind. It's more just, like you said, doing it on the back end and changing it. I don't understand all the technicalities of that, but I think that's really cool to see that. I guess how it's going to just evolve is the best way I can put it. But just finally then, what can we expect? You mentioned some extra partnerships or integrations, but what else can we expect from you guys in the next 12 months?
Yeah, so we have a lot of cool stuff, coming out, or already out. So, for starters, Maison Du, I'm going to be going live. And with that, we're going to have a Maison Du street in a virtual shopping center that we're building. So think Decentraland, but for e-commerce. And imagine you could walk around and hop into your favorite store and walk in there and see what you want to buy in virtual reality on your desktop, and then make a purchase, get that NFT and get the product shipped to you right to your door. So that experience of e-commerce is coming to Split. That's really exciting. We'll probably have some info on that this week, like a teaser, and then that system going live this year for sure. So that's really exciting. Our Shopify client is still in beta, but you can watch a video of exactly how it works. We're going to probably start taking waitlist members here next month to start testing out in the final stages of the Shopify client before we get ready to publish it live. So that's on tap. We got a couple big names, here in the US and globally, where still can't drop the names yet, but they're one of the largest retailers of owning a bunch of really big brands that everybody knows, like retailers in luxury fashion, fast fashion for teens, like electronics. So they have a ton of brands under their conglomerate. We'll probably be able to, as soon as we get some contract signed, I'll release that. I'll tell you what though, I don't want to digress too much. I feel like we're kind of in a toxic culture here in the crypto space, where it's like, all right, we got to manufacture this news left and right all the time, just to kind of keep, the whole system. Yeah. And this is just, a little quick side note. But I think, what we want to do is not turn into this kind of like, crazy hype cycle, but it's like, hey, once we have something in place with the actual contract signed and a partnership secured is when we release news. So yeah, that's sorry if I'm not able to release some names. That's just some.
No, that's fine. Wait, but I just want to ask you on that point. What would you say is toxic right now specifically? I missed it.
Oh, I was saying the expectations of manufacturing news on a day in, day out basis, right? So it's all right, well, we got to start competing on who could manufacture bigger news, who has the bigger celebrity or the bigger influencer. But I'm but how is the influencer celebrity going to really help the project longevity? How is there going to really help users, right? So, in some ways you could be well, there's, a brand awareness and excitement that comes along with it. Okay, I'll buy that. And, we do have some, big names that we're working with as well. But that shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be, how many new users do you have on your platform? How close are you to actually getting to a decentralized ecosystem, whatever you're trying to build? So I'm just, again, I hope the focus could go back on the users and why we're here in the first place. Getting cryptocurrency and blockchain and going to the moon, it's really fun. Don't get me wrong, I'm all about it, but it's about change. It's about how we could organize society in a better way. And we could live our life without having, to fear that the government or somebody is going to censor us or not give us a fair opportunity to live our lives the way we want to. And that's what really blockchain represents, is hope for a better future for our children and our future generations to thrive. And, I just don't want people to forget about that too.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I fully understand where you're coming from. But I think sometimes we have to kind of realize that the nature of 2021, the nature of this era, and actually I was talking about this the other day, is that sometimes people do forget the core fundamentals. The fundamentals always matter and they're so important. But a lot of the time we underestimate the power of a good meme, whether we like it or not. This is just, what sells. Hyperbole sells. It's the difference between journalism and journalism, just getting it out there constantly. And where even if it's not good quality, as long as it's out there, people love it, people eat it up. It's just the nature of society these days. And I am a positive person, but in my cynical opinion, I think we're actually going to continue going down this route. You need to have core fundamentals, but everything is sort of about hype, and that's kind of just the way I look at it, unfortunately.
No, I totally agree with you. That's, like I said, we have our own, pipeline of news and everything that's dropping. We already started, doing so last week. But what I'm saying is, let's not forget about why we're here. Yeah, having the hype and the celebrities and those A-list type of players, absolutely. But let's not forget that there is some substance behind all of the shiny, fun parts of it too. That could make an impact. But yeah. Totally on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. These fundamentals matter, and sometimes I'm also with you. I wish that we could sort of focus on that a little more, especially when we see the most ridiculous supermarket coins, as I call them, coming out. But Cyrus, I want to thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show, and we'll have to get you back in a few months to catch up and hear how everything has gone.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.